God's blessings to everyone. This is a DGHradio.com news update. I'm SGD reporting the news for Wednesday, October 8th, 2025, covering the latest developments across the Caribbean. Turks and Caicos is pressing ahead with tough public safety tactics after a surge in gang activity earlier this year. Authorities have deployed rolling, localized curfews in hotspot communities on Providenciales and tightened enforcement on late-night businesses, with police promising heavier patrols and targeted operations. Residents are being urged to report suspicious activity, while leaders emphasize that curfews are meant to be short, surgical tools to stabilize neighborhoods so detectives can pursue the organizers behind the violence. Community groups say sustained outreach and youth programming must move in lockstep with enforcement or risk pushing the problem into adjoining districts. Barbados has confirmed a new head of state, with lawmakers in a joint sitting electing retired Lieutenant Colonel and former Health Minister Jeffrey Bostic as the country's second president since becoming a republic. The role is ceremonial and constitutional, assenting to bills, appointing certain offices on advice, and representing the state at home and abroad. But Barbadians often look to the office to champion national unity, constitutional standards, and civic values. Attention now turns to the timetables for swearing in and the transition formalities. Observers expect early remarks to signal a tone of continuity and institutional stewardship as the nation navigates cost of living pressures and climate resilience priorities. In Trinidad and Tobago, the prison system is under intense scrutiny as officials confront waves of drone-assisted contraband drops and illicit communications, helping gangs coordinate from behind bars. Acting Prisons, Commissioner Hayden Ford says facilities are exploring purpose-built anti-drone defenses alongside upgrades to body scanners and perimeter monitoring. Police recently intercepted a drone laden with narcotics and electronics near the Arauca Maximum Security Prison, with suspects detained and a cache of devices seized. Stakeholders support narrowly targeted counter-drone measures that don't bleed into surrounding communities, plus clearer rules for geofencing around critical infrastructure. Officer unions continue to press for staffing, training, and mental health support amid high stress. On crime trends in Jamaica, the national picture shows murders down across most police divisions this year, but St. Anne has bucked the trend, recording an increase and triggering a leadership reshuffle in the parish command. Security chiefs credit joint operations, focused investigations, and illegal gun seizures for the broader national decline, yet acknowledge that localized flare-ups can overwhelm gains. In St. Anne, commanders have promised more hotspot patrols, cross-parish coordination, and community engagement to break retaliation cycles. Business owners in tourism corridors are calling for predictable patrols and faster case clearances to sustain hard-won confidence ahead of the peak season. Barbados' external trade numbers underline persistent import dependence. From January through August, the island's import bill topped $3 billion Barbados dollars, reflecting high global costs for fuel and food alongside construction and retail demand. Exports of rum, chemicals, and niche manufacturers continue to earn foreign exchange, but aren't enough to narrow the merchandise gap. Policymakers say the path to lower import exposure runs through energy diversification, especially distributed solar, plus selective import substitution, where quality and price allow. Port facilitation and logistics reforms are being accelerated to reduce delays and demurrage fees that feed into shelf prices for consumers. Region-wide aviation demand continues to recover. Airports counsel international projects that Latin America and the Caribbean will close 2025 with roughly 789 million passengers, around a 4% year-over-year rise driven by leisure travel, low-cost carrier expansion, and better intra-regional connectivity. For Caribbean hubs, the upside depends on runway and terminal upgrades, resilient power and flood protection, and fee policies that keep routes sustainable through shoulder seasons. Airport operators are also expanding solar generation and electrifying ground fleets to meet lenders' sustainability benchmarks. Tourism agencies, for their part, are crafting route incentives tied to visitor management capacity and workforce development. Turning to weather, Tropical Storm Jerry formed over the open Atlantic and is forecast to strengthen over warm waters as it tracks westward. While it poses no immediate land threat, forecasters caution that slight shifts in track or intensity could bring squalls and heavy rain to parts of the Leeward Islands later in the period. Emergency managers urge residents to check supplies, confirm communication plans, and monitor official advisories. Late season systems can intensify quickly. Mariners and inter-island ferry operators should review contingency timetables and mooring plans in case seas build faster than expected. Public health leaders are sharpening their focus on non-communicable diseases. Health officials and experts from across the Caribbean met in Castries, St. Lucia, to push a more unified response to diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and cancer, the region's leading causes of premature death. Discussions centered on harmonized screening protocols, shared procurement for essential medications, and region-wide lifestyle campaigns on nutrition and physical activity. Delegates also weighed policy tools like sugar-sweetened beverage taxes and clearer front-of-package labeling to help consumers make healthier choices. Follow-on work is expected to define shared benchmarks and timelines for primary care strengthening and data sharing. Economic signals in Barbados remain cautiously constructive, according to the central bank. Governor Dr. Kevin Greenidge has pointed to steady, if modest, growth momentum buttressed by tourism's continued normalization and a pipeline of public and private sector projects in infrastructure and housing. He has also warned that imported inflation, energy costs, and global headwinds require fiscal discipline and careful calibration of incentives to crowd in private investment. Strong foreign reserve buffers provide a cushion against external shocks, but authorities stress that structural reforms, from ease of doing business improvements to renewable energy build-out, are essential to lift long-run potential. Jamaica, meanwhile, is dealing with prolonged drought pressure. Below average rainfall has reduced inflows to the Mona Reservoir and Hermitage Dam, forcing scheduled water lockoffs across parts of Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, and Clarendon. The National Water Commission is trucking supplies to the hardest-hit communities, publishing service schedules, and urging conservation, fixing leaks, reducing non-essential use, and harvesting rainwater where possible. Farmers report crop and livestock stress, with the knock-on risk of price spikes if conditions persist. The episode underscores the urgency of modernizing distribution networks, expanding storage, and fast-tracking climate-resilient water infrastructure. In Trinidad and Tobago's energy sector, authorities are doubling down on natural gas as a transition fuel, even as they pledge cleaner production. Energy Minister Stuart Young has highlighted negotiations to unlock deepwater gas while stabilizing supply to Atlantic LNG. To keep exports competitive in a carbon-conscious market, the government is exploring carbon capture and storage options aligned with its climate commitments. Economists say the crucial test will be whether near-term gas revenue can be channeled into productivity-raising investments, ports, digital services skills that diversify the economy and soften exposure to commodity cycles. A legal climate push with regional resonance is unfolding in the Dutch Caribbean. Residents of Bonaire have taken the Dutch state to court, arguing that inadequate climate action violates their rights given sea level rise risks and intensifying heat. The case, backed by advocacy groups, asks for steeper emissions cuts and stronger local protections. The Dutch government counters that courts should not set policy specifics. Whatever the ruling, the suit spotlights the asymmetry small islands face: minimal global emissions, outsized impacts, and limited fiscal space for adaptation, yet growing expectations for their metropolitan partners to step up. Finally, questions persist around the tally of U.S. maritime strikes on suspected drug-running vessels off Latin America. Official counts and public claims have diverged in recent weeks as governments cite operations meant to disrupt trafficking networks in international waters. Analysts warn that opaque reporting standards fuel public mistrust and complicate oversight. Maritime law experts note that clarity on rules of engagement and third-party verification mechanisms, where feasible, can help balance operational security with democratic accountability. Regional partners say sustained joint interdiction and financial crime enforcement remain the most effective ways to squeeze illicit networks. I'm your reporter, SGD, signing off for DGHradio.com. Remember, SGD and DGH. Together we source, gather, and deliver daily global headlines because on DGHradio.com, the news never sleeps. Ciao.